What's going on, YouTube? Today we're going to be talking about positioning in team fights. And so I'm going to kind of talk about the different roles and how they're supposed to position in team fights. I know I've done a guide on each role, and in each of those guides I talked about that role's role in a team fight, essentially. But I want to do one video where I talk about specifically team fight positioning and talk about all roles, so we can kind of talk about how they fit together in a team fight and how a team fight is sort of supposed to go when you sort of incorporate all the different roles together doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm just going to go through each of the different roles, talk about what their role in a team fight is, and sort of show how they fit together, and maybe clear up some misconceptions about some of the different roles too. So to start, we're going to talk about the support first. So Guardians are typically your supports, and the support player's main role is pretty self-explanatory. It's to support your team in the team fight, but that means a couple different things. Basically, the support's role is threefold in a team fight. The first is to initiate the fight. The second is to absorb a lot of damage, and the third is to peel for your teammates. And so I'm going to go through each of those. So most supports generally have good initiation, meaning that they have some sort of crowd control that's going to group up the other team, or they have something that's going to put another person on the other team out of position or something like that. Some way that they can get into the fight and get the fight started. So that, like sometimes you'll have two teams just kind of sitting there and nobody knows how to get the fight started, because nobody wants to go in first. And so that's what the support's role is, to get that fight started. The second role is to absorb a lot of damage. As a support, you're going to be the tankiest player on the team. And so you are capable of absorbing a lot of powerful abilities from the other team and surviving through that. So it's better that you, that's why you're initiating the fight, because you're then going to absorb those damaging abilities, which allows your high damage squishier targets to stay alive so that they can put out all the damage that they need to do, because that's their role in the team fight. So that's your second role, and that kind of comes with initiating the fight. When you initiate the fight, you're just kind of naturally going to absorb a lot of the abilities. And then your third role is peeling for your team. So one thing that supports can often do wrong is they initiate the fight, and that's like they're putting their foot on the gas pedal, they're just going in, they want to initiate, and then they just keep going forward, and they're just running at the other team, trying to CC them and just set up all these kills, which is good, but you want to be careful about going in too deep, because you also have to keep an eye on your backline, because when you initiate the fight, the other team has tanky targets too that might counter-initiate and jump on your backline, and so you want to be there to help out your teammates and keep those squishy targets in the backline alive after you've initiated the fight. So once you've gotten the fight going, then you want to sort of mentally take a step back, sort of zoom out and look at your whole team and try to keep an eye on everything that's going on and figure out who's in trouble and who needs your help, your support, to keep everybody alive in the team fight for as long as possible. So that's sort of where you want to transition the team fight after you've initiated. Figure out who needs help and help them, keep them alive, and then if nobody's in imminent danger, you can set up more kills and things like that. That's sort of the support's role in a team fight. Now I'm going to talk about the warrior. The warrior, or I guess the soul laner, it's going to be usually you have a warrior in the soul lane, is your other tanky target in a team fight. And so their role is going to be a little similar, but slightly different. Warriors can also be the initiation. They're sort of the other initiators on the team, like the Guardians. But usually what you want to have happen is the Guardian's going to initiate first, and then what the warrior is going to do is the warrior is going to initiate onto the back line. So what that means is that, once the support gets the fight started, the warrior is just going to dive in, and they're going to do what the thing that the supports often make the mistake of doing, which is the warriors are just going to go in deep and just go right for the back line and basically spend the whole fight back there just doing damage to the carries, disrupting the carries, and just creating chaos in the back line, because, the back line is where the squishy but high damage targets are going to be. And the key to each team winning the team fight is keeping those targets alive so that they can put out the high damage on the targets that they need to. So if you're just distracting them, disrupting them, controlling them, even killing them if you can, but just making it so they can't do the damage that they want to do because this annoying warrior's in their face slapping the crap out of them, then that's basically your role as a warrior, is to just create complete chaos in the back line and just be going crazy. And so this is the role for the people that just want to have their foot on the gas pedal the whole time and just go in and just keep going in. That's what the soul laner's role is. And so this is why you're going to be building tanky for a soul laner too, because your role isn't really to do damage in the back line. I mean, you're going to do some damage, but you're not supposed to be building damage. You want to survive in the back line so you can just create havoc and make it easier for your damaging characters to get the damage out without being immediately killed. So that's your role. And then also, if the fight starts to spread out a little bit and you see teammates that need help, obviously you're going to help them. But for the most part, your goal is just get in the back line and just create mass havoc. So yeah. Now I want to talk about assassins. Assassins are one of your 3 high damage, squishy carries. I'll call them, like carry in quote. There's a carry role, but there's really 3 carries when you talk about them in team fights. And when I say carry, I mean somebody who's going to be responsible for doing a lot of damage in a team fight. So assassins are the first one of those. And an assassin, their role, and it depends. Assassins are one of the more diverse classes. There's a lot of very different assassins, but I'm going to talk about as a general rule. If you want to get into the individual assassins, you can go to my jungle guide video and I'll talk about that. But as a general rule, assassins, their role is to be assassins. And what I mean by that is that you're sort of lurking on the outskirts of the team fight. You're probably, if the team fight's in a lane, you're probably sitting in the jungle somewhere, or maybe in the back line, and you're waiting for that opportunity when somebody's out of position or somebody's not paying attention to you, or the other team used all their abilities and you just have that opening where you can jump onto the back line, kind of like the warriors do, the solo laners. But instead of creating havoc back there, your goal is to set your target on one single target. Usually, there's a couple assassins that this differs for, but for the most part, you're picking out one squishy target in the backline that you see an opportunity for, and you assassinate them. You just go in and you full combo them, you blow them up, put as much damage on that one target as you can, kill them, and then get out. Right? That's your job. Is you pick out that one target that needs to be eliminated, and you assassinate them. That's why they call them assassins. They're high damage, and they do damage to a single target for the most part. And so that's what you're doing. You're waiting for that opportunity. You let your team initiate first because you're a lot squishier. So if you initiate, you're probably going to die in most cases. There's a couple people like Thor that can initiate sometimes, but for the most part, you let your team initiate. You let you let the chaos start, and then when everybody's distracted, you go in, you sneak in, and you just blow somebody up, and then you get out before they even know what happened. So that's your role as a jungler usually. There's a couple that are different. Thor can be a little bit of an initiator. Fenrir can be a little bit different. And Bakasura can be, sort of might stay in the fight a little longer, but for the most part, that's your role, and that's your goal in every team fight is to find that one target, get in, kill them, get out, and then maybe do that again after your abilities go back on cooldown. But each time you're going in, that's your goal is pick that one target, kill them, get out, be an assassin. Okay, so we'll talk about mages. No, actually, I'm talking about hunters first, and then mages. Hunters. So the hunters are your second, not like second like in order, but just they're another carry in the team fight. They're your another high damage squishy carry. And so your goal as a hunter. Hunters are the sustained damage in a team fight, meaning that hunters' roles are you're supposed to be in the back line, be safe, like in your own back line, not in the other team's back line. You want to be in your own back line. You want to be safe, protected by your support. And your goal is to simply stay alive and keep putting out sustained damage. So your goal, like think about it like this, right? Let's say, your goal is not to, go in and do a ton of damage really, really quickly. It's better to do a larger amount of damage over a longer time. So you're doing damage slower, but over a longer period of time because you stay alive, basically. So you want to be doing damage. You don't want to be so far out of the fight that you're not doing damage, but your goal in a team fight is to stay alive so you can continually do damage. So don't put yourself out of position. Don't go in too deep and put yourself in a position where that other team's assassin can blink in and kill you, because you have the unique quality on your team where your basic attacks, which have no cooldown and you always have your basic attacks available to you, so you can always be doing damage, are a high damaging ability, right? Nobody else really, except some assassins, do high damage with their basic attacks. And even those assassins, it's not ranged, right? So they're not safe when they're doing it. But hunters are unique in that they can be at a safe distance and still do damage constantly with their basic attacks and like high damage. So your role is to be at a safe distance where you can continually just put out that sustained high damage with those auto attacks over and over and over and over again. And so it's a balance of making sure that you're in position to do some damage while also making sure that you don't get in position to just die right away. Because if you get out of the fight early, that's a ton of sustained damage that your team loses. Conversely, now I'm going to talk about we're going to talk about mid laners, the mages. And mages are a little bit different. And this is one of the mistakes that I think a lot of mage players make. Even so much as at the highest level, I think this was one of the factors that led to like ALG kicking their mid laner, was that Mages are also a very high damage um, class, and their goal is to do a lot of damage to the other team. But mages are more. It's more important that mages have more ability based damage usually than auto attack based damage. The three auto attack based mages, Freya, Kronos, and Sol, really fit more into the hunter category anyway. People treat them as hunters, so don't count them in this. But for the rest of them, you're doing ability based damage, and you sort of have a combo of abilities or a set of abilities that you want to get off, and you want to do as much burst damage as possible to the whole team. And so it is true that you want to be safe at the beginning of the team fight. You don't want to put yourself out of position before your support has initiated and set up certain characters for damage. But once that happens and the chaos is created, the team fight gets underway, you don't want to just put yourself out of position so that you're going to die immediately, but you don't want to be so worried about surviving like a hunter is that you don't get your damage in on the squishy targets and the important high value targets on the other team. Your goal as a mage is to simply do as much possible damage in a team fight as possible really quickly. Have this big burst of damage from the mage that's going to essentially send the team fight spiraling out of control for the other team, right? You want to just immediately explode and just do so much player damage to the other team as possible, even if it means that you're going to die. As a mage, if you get 0 kills in a fight, let's say you're Zeus, right? And you have an Odin on your team. The Odin goes in and puts a ring around 4 people, right? Your goal as the Zeus is to throw your ultimate on that ring and then throw your shield on the ring and put your chain lightning off of it and then detonate, right? And you just did a massive amount of damage. And you want to go all in when you do that, because even if you don't get the final hit on any of those people, or let's say you go in and you throw your whole combo on them and then you have nothing left and the other team turns and kills you, you just got everybody on that team to below 25%, right? So even though you died, and maybe your slash time looks bad, maybe you went 1-4 and 16 in a game, you probably were the reason that your team won most of those team fights because you did most of the damage, and then your hunter can clean up, and your solo laner and your assassin can clean up the kills. I'm not saying mages never get kills. That's not the point here. But what I'm saying is that unlike hunters, whose goal is you got to stay alive so you can do as much damage over time as possible, doing that damage over time really isn't as important for mages. Once that opportunity is created by your support and your solo laner to get in, you just got to go in and you got to get that damage out. And if you survive, that's great, because then you can keep doing damage. But that initial burst is the key part, and you have to make sure you get that off. And if you're a casualty of getting that initial damage off, then you have to be okay with that if you're going to play mid. Mid laners, they got to get their damage off, and if they die, sometimes that's just a thing that happens in team fights, but you've done your job. So don't be so concerned about that slash line and about getting all the kills and not dying that you don't get the damage off in team fights to the high value targets that you need to. So yeah, hopefully. And also just to give a little talk on pre-fight positioning for these high damage carries. It's kind of hard to give an exact formula for how to do this, because a lot of people say I don't want to be out of position. I don't want to be too close to the other team that I just get picked off in the beginning of the fight, because that's no good. But then I don't want to be so far back that my team sets up kills for me and then I'm too far away to do any damage, right? So how do I fix that? And there's not really an exact formula I can give you, this is how many units away from the other team's front line you're supposed to be in the right position to do damage without getting killed, right? There's a lot of factors that go into, who's on the other team. Is there a Thor on the other team? Because that's something you have to think about all the time, because he can initiate on you at any time. Are your relics up? Are the other team's relics up? What kind of initiation, what kind of peel do you have? All these factors go into your positioning. And so it's really something that's learned, but it just through experience, and you have to take each team fight on a individual basis and kind of analyze who you've got on your team and who they've got on their team. So it's not an exact formula, but I will say that your goal is to put yourself in a position so that you are ready to do that damage and go in when the time is right and when the opportunity is created by the rest of your team, but not be so far away that the other team creates the opportunities that you then miss out on because you're so far away from the team fight that you just can't do anything, right? So it's a difficult balance, but that is the goal that you're looking for. And again, I can't give you a recipe for how to do that, because each individual basis, there's so many factors that go into it that each one is different. But that's at least the end goal. That's what you're striving for in those team fights as those damage characters. And so at least hopefully that gives you something to practice and something to look towards, and you can hopefully learn from your own mistakes in team fights, at least understanding that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and when it doesn't work out, hopefully you can learn why it didn't work out with that sort of position and goal in mind. So yeah, that's all I'm going to talk about for this video. Shout out to Bambi Killer for the suggestion. And as always, if you like the video, please like and subscribe and comment if you have any questions, concerns, any other ideas for videos. And as always, go ahead and check out my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/steelorange3398. That's where I'm filming this right now. Thanks for watching. Hey, Bambi Killer.